Hey guys, this is Harry from VideoCopilot, and in this video, I will break down my process of recreating this Thor Love and Thunder intro using just After Effects without using any paid plugins. Okay, let's get started. Okay, first, I got my reference video in the background. Very important. Next step is to match the font. This should be easy. Nope. Custom text then. So I need to trace the text. But to do that, we have a problem. The text is oriented back in 3D space. So I started by creating a white solid and added a grid effect to it. Made it 3D and oriented it to match the text. Then I deleted the grid effect and using pen tool traced the text. Once I'm done, I rotated the solid back to 0 to have the proper oriented text. Then I converted the mask to shape layers and precomposed it and called it base text. Now it's time to give some texture. So using the gradient ramp effect, I first created a blue and white gradient. Then created a dark blue and red gradient, and using a mask I combined them both. And then used the base text as an alpha matte for this gradient. Nice. Now to create the golden bevel, I duplicated the text, added a tint effect and made it black. Then added a stroke layer style to get the outer bevel. Changed the stroke color to white and precomposed it. I then duplicated it and used the duplicate as a luma matte to get rid of the black color and to create some transparency. Then I added a fractal noise effect to this bevel, decreased the complexity to 3 to fake some shininess. Then using the tint effect, I gave it a golden color. Now to fake some depth, I duplicated the bevel comp and added a drop shadow effect to it. And now I have a finished 2D text. Well, now to make it 3D, I need an extrusion. For that, I copied the text layer without a stroke and pasted it in the main comp. I named it extrusion. First, I added a fractal noise effect. Then added a tritone effect and changed the colors to red and purplish pink. Pinkish purple, whatever. Then added a CC radial blur effect to it. Changed the type to fading zoom and gave it a negative amount. Then added a curves effect and raised the alpha channel all the way up. So this gave an extrusion, but there's a problem. In the original, the extrusion has some dark shadows. But we have a completely flat color, and as this is not a real extrusion, we cannot expect After Effects to calculate any shadows for us, so I need to fake it somehow. So for that, what I did was added a tint effect at first and made it completely black. Then added a CC radial blur effect, typed to fading zoom and gave it a very small negative amount. Then applied a solid composite effect followed by a set matte effect. Now I have white color only at the edges. Now by moving the radial blur center, we can somewhat define the direction of the lighting. Now I applied the fractal noise effect and changed the blending mode to multiply. After enabling the tritone and the CC radial blur effects, I ended up with this. Yay! You must be thinking, why not create a real extrusion? Oh well, After Effects won't let you do that. If you're making something 3D, forget about texturing it. If you're texturing something, forget about making it 3D. As simple as that. I then made the text 3D and oriented it back. Did the same thing for all the other layers. For the extrusion center, I created a null object, made it 3D, linked it to another null and pushed it back in z-axis. Then using the parent null, oriented it so that it aligns with the text. Then using an expression, I linked the radial blur center to the null object we positioned back in z-axis. Why did I do this? Cause this more or less makes it feel like a real 3D text. Now onto the animation. The camera animation is just a simple pullback or dolly movement. But the text is rotating. As you can see in the original, it's rotating from this side. So for that, I animated a null object. Now I linked everything related to text to this null object. And there you go. We have an animated text. I finally pushed everything up to match the original, and that finishes the Thor text animation. Now onto these metal rings, whatever you want to call them. I created a simple rectangle shape layer and rotated it. I then duplicated the path and decreased the size just a bit. Then I added a mesh path effect and changed the mode to subtract. Then I precomposed it. This is very important. And inside the precomp, made the shape layer 3D. Now for this precomp, I went into the composition settings and changed the renderer to Cinema 4D. This enables the geometry options. Now under the geometry options, change the bevel style to angular and increase the bevel depth. What's happening? Let me add a light to actually make it visible. By default, bevel depth slider won't let you go past 10, but if you enter a higher value, it just accepts. So, you slider. I also gave it a small extrusion depth, and there you go. 3D modeling inside After Effects, guys. I then duplicated this shape layer and decreased the scale to create a smaller ring, and then pushed it forward in Z-axis. Duplicated it again, decreased the scale even more, and pushed it forward even more. I then duplicated these two rings and positioned them back like this. Now I created these small rods using simple rectangle shape layer. Made it 3D and gave it a very high extrusion depth. I then pushed it forward in Z-axis to cover all the rings. I then duplicated this shape to increase the number of these rods. At this point, you can feel your After Effects struggling. Well, it kinda makes you feel like Thor though. Come on, After Effects! Yay. Then I positioned the light to the left to kinda match the original lighting. Went into the material options and enabled cast shadows. Made them completely reflective by increasing the reflection intensity all the way up. But it's all black now. Well, this is because we don't have any environment. So I created a simple gradient map like before and defined it as the environment layer. Now the rings will reflect the gradient environment. I then copy pasted the material options to all the shape layers. For these rods, I gave them a red fill color and made them completely reflective just like the rings. To have some variation in the environment layer, I added a cell pattern effect on top of the gradient color. Yeah, well, it just looked better this way. Coming to the animation, I animated a null object rotating and going back, and linked everything to this null object. As you can see, along with the null object animation, the rings are also animated so that they come close and overlap by the end. And the rods are also animated so that they go back with time. Their extrusion was also animated to decrease over time. And this is how the animation looks from the camera view. Well, this is how they look both combined. Okay, now, in the original, we can see that the rings are disappearing as they cross the letter O. There is a clear interaction here, which means we need a real 3D text inside our Cinema 4D composition. So for that, what I did was I copied the Thor text shape layer and pasted it in the Cinema 4D comp. Made it 3D, oriented it negative 30 degrees to match the original text. Now to position it correct, I copied the Thor text position values and pasted it here. Well, this is to match the exact 3D position. Once that's done, I went into the material options and turned off everything. I just want a flat color. I then increased the extrusion depth to cover the entire fake extrusion I created before. There you go, the rings are cutting off according to the text shape, but now I need to get rid of this white text. Usually in any 3D renderer, inside the material options, there would be a matte object option to achieve what we are trying to achieve, which is to hide this white text layer. But here, this is After Effects. It's not going to provide all those options. It's got a reputation to maintain, man. So I need to find a workaround. And I came up with this simple idea. So what I did was, using fill effect, I made the text green color. You guessed it right. Then I created another solid, made it 3D, and gave it green color too. Went into the material options and turned off everything. And positioned it at the bottom of the extrusion. There you go. So now all I need to do is get rid of this green color, which is very easy now. So all I did was I added a key light effect and bam, that's it. It worked. And now onto this Love and Thunder text. For this, I just traced the text using masks. Once I'm done, I created a gradient map and used the text as an alpha matte and pre-composed this, just like before. I then duplicated this pre-comp and added a stroke layer style to it. Made the stroke color white and tinted the text black. Pre-composed it and duplicated it again. And used the duplicate as a luma matte to get rid of the black color and create some transparency. It's all just the same thing what I did with the dot text. And for the shadow, just like before, duplicated the bevel comp and added a drop shadow effect to it. Now I pre-composed all this together as Love and Thunder text. Now for the animation, I made the text 3D and animated the G position like this. I then duplicated it and to the bottom copy added a fractal noise effect. Increased the scale height and added a tritone effect to it. Changed the color to red and purple like before. Then I added an adjustment layer on top of this and added an echo effect. Increased the number of echoes and decreased the echo time, and finally changed the echo operator to composite in front. I then enabled the original text, and this is what I ended up with. Nice. Now to make it look like the original, I need to stop the echo effect at this position. But there are no options inside echo effect to do so. So what I did was, I duplicated the bottom copy and positioned it above the adjustment layer. Applied a CC radial blur effect to it and gave some negative amount. Applied a curves effect and raised the alpha channel all the way up. Now I moved the radial blur center so that the extrusion kinda matches the echo effect. And to my surprise, both these effects worked pretty good together. Now I enable the layers motion blur toggle to make the echo smooth. Okay, I'm almost done. Now I need to recreate these lighting effects. For that, I copied the solid with the text shape masks and pasted it in the main comp. Made it 3D. Now I applied a Saber effect to it. This is a VideoCopilot's free plugin. Inside the Saber effect, change the core type to layer masks and change the preset to electric. Then I animated a simple circular white mask and used it as a Luma or Alpha matte for this. Okay, now I duplicated the Saber layer and this time decreased the end offset all the way down and animated the evolution using time expression. This creates the typical energized look. For this also I animated a mask shape and used it as a Luma matte. So by combining the two effects, I got the desired look. And in the main comp, change the transfer mode to screen and that's pretty much it. I also animated a flare effect and also animated some fractal noise in the background and that's it. So with this, I'm done. Thanks for watching and please subscribe for more.